Hi everybody, this is Quotidian Light and this is day 15 of Novel Prep Month. Yes, I finally missed a day. I told myself I wasn't going to miss any days, but yesterday I got some really horrible news and I just needed to take a moment. So let's just jump right in it. First off, I'm not a published author yet. I am not a writing teacher. I'm somebody that failed National Novel Writing Month multiple times until eventually I had the skills necessary to complete it. And I'm hoping that through this video series, I'll be able to take you from initial idea all the way to feeling really confident as you go into November. So at this point, these are the things that you should have. You should have your one sentence summary that has been written and revised probably 2 or 3 times. You should have a one paragraph summary, likewise has been revised at least once. You should have a 1 to 2 page summary. The snowflake method recommends 1 page summary. Somehow I always end up with a 2 page summary. Either one is fine. Just whatever you've got, you've got. Then you should also have character sketches for each one of your main characters and a few of your side characters. And you should also have journal entries or blog posts or just summaries written from each of the main characters' points of view that encapsulate the book. 1 page for each main character, 1 paragraph, well, no, half a page for each minor character. That's what you should have at this point. It's a lot. You've done a lot of work. You should be really proud of yourself. At this point, underachievers may look at it and say, oh, I'm done. But you know what? We're overachievers. We're going to nail this. So what are we going to do next? Here's what I want you to do. Take out all of your 1 page summaries that are written from each of your characters' points of view. Get a highlighter or a pen or something and a blank sheet of paper. Put it next to you. Now, you're going to read each one of them and you're going to highlight anything that looks interesting that could be developed into a side plot. So side plots are important because they add depth to your novel. They can add color, additional interest to the novel. You can have a side plot that supports the main plot. But I find that it's easier to find the side plots if they naturally come as an outcome from the characters. So, excuse me, read each of them and highlight anything that looks interesting. Excuse me again, one moment. Now, once you've highlighted anything that looks like it could be developed into a side plot, I want you to read your 2 page summary or your 1 page summary and then look at what you've highlighted and ask yourself if any of those support the main plot. Ask yourself if any of them look super interesting. Maybe one of your characters is in love with somebody. Maybe one of your characters has a family secret. Maybe one of your characters has a dream that they're trying to fulfill in the background of the story. Pick out 1 or 2. I like to have 2 side plots, but pick out 1 or 2 that you think would be fun to write. Now look at your summary and try to see where you want to put these new plots. Where's the beginning of the new plot going to happen? Where's the middle of the new plot going to happen? Where's the end of the new plot going to happen? These plots do not have to have the same trajectory as the main plot. You may have a side plot that has a beginning, middle, and end that only encompass the beginning and the middle of the main plot. What I recommend is that you don't have them follow parallel. You don't want rising action of the main plot at the same time as the side plot, climaxing of both the side plot and the minor plot. Like, you might have them climax at the same time, but there should be some variation through the other parts of the plot. And one thing you can think about as you're thinking about this is the idea of the scene. Because the easiest way to complete National Novel Writing Month is not to write the book and it's not to write the chapters. It's to write your scenes. And when you read a book, if you have multiple scenes in a row that have tons and tons of conflict and the action keeps rising, the reader doesn't get a break. And so when something really big happens, they may actually be so fatigued that the importance and the enormity of the climax totally goes over their head. So one of the things that it's good to do is to have breather scenes. So, or some people call them sequels. So you have an event in one scene, and then the next scene is a resolution or a resting scene or a compression scene or a processing scene. And then the next scene is like another major event, so that it's kind of like your book is breathing in and out and in and out. And that gives the reader a little bit of a break so that when big things happen, they have the energy to be surprised or to be amazed or to be upset because they're not worn out. But one thing that you don't want to do for those breather scenes is to have boring scenes. Even the processing scenes should be interesting. And that is the perfect thing for a side plot. If you have a minor plot, some of those breather scenes may be scenes where something happens in the minor plot, so that those scenes still have interest and they're still propelling the reader forward, but they're a little bit less intense than the scenes that are pertaining to the main plot. So think about this. You don't have to perfect this. This is probably something that if you're a more advanced writer, you're going to be able to really work this into your plot. If you're a new writer, I suggest just keeping this thought in the back of your head. As you're reading your summary, if you have a bunch of things happening all in a row, think about maybe inserting something quiet in between some of those actions, or maybe something from one of these additional plots that you're considering. So now you've put some arrows next to some places where you think these additional plots might go. You've read through your character development, so you have a much better understanding of your character than you did the last time you wrote the 1 to 2 paragraph summary. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take, for every single paragraph of your summary, you're going to write a page. And this, you're actually going to, once you've written it, you're going to go back through it and cross out anything that doesn't need to be there. Just, you want this to be as clear and as succinct as possible. And if you get stuck, the best thing you can ask yourself is, what happens next? What happens next? And what happens next? And answer yourself those questions. And if you do it in that way, what you're going to find is you actually know your story a lot better than you think you do. So for every single paragraph, you're going to write a page. What happens next? What happens next? And depending on whether you started out with a 1-page summary or a 2-page summary, you may end up with a 4-page summary or an 8-page summary. And this is the summary that we're going to use to break up and find all of your scenes. I'm going to give you a couple days to do this. This is like huge. This is where your outline really is born. And I think this approach really works for me because it's narrative. You know, I'm not sitting here with a bunch of bullet points. This happens in scene 1, this happens in scene 2, this happens in scene 3. That gets me lost. That just totally gets me uninterested. I get lost in the details and I lose the story. But what I want you to do is to continue to just tell the story. Don't try to quote unquote plan the story. You have a couple marks of where you want to insert some side stuff, but don't sit there with a spreadsheet and try to be all scientific about it. I really truly want you to sit down and just tell the story. And I'm going to suggest that you do this on paper. Now, tomorrow we're going to have our first Scrivener boot camp, because at this point, once you've written the summary, it's time to open up the computer. Because, I'm not going to make you do NaNoWriMo by hand. Now, I completed my first NaNoWriMo novel by hand, but, I'm realistic. Ciao.